Good day. Thank you for joining One Stone Ministries video outreach. Today we're going over a youth conference that's slated for early January 2020. And we want to let parents know at least 4 reasons why they shouldn't send their kids to the Strength to Stand 2020 conference. There's actually a whole lot more than 4 reasons, but this video took quite a while to research and put together, and now in production. It's going to be quite a long, lengthy video for YouTube. So we stopped where we're going to stop on this one. Depending on the feedback we get, we might do a second one, because there's a lot of information that's not easily found unless you have great research skills, which is what we live for at One Stone Ministries, researching and getting the word out to people. And this is important for not only high school age students, junior high, and then their parents. A lot of parents just don't have a clue. I mean, I didn't even know about this until I got an email from a Christian news company saying that one of the artists that was slated for this conference removed himself from the conference. And we'll go over the reasons for that in a couple of minutes, but these people seem to be hiding a lot, and I don't know why, because they should be open and above board when it comes to children, unless they have something to hide. But parents should be aware of what's going on in their children's realm, so to speak. Most of us are parents. I'm the senior editor here, and I'm 60, and I've got an 8-year-old and a 15-year-old, and I'm very concerned about things that are going on in today's society. And it really concerns me that I just stumbled across this conference almost by a stroke of luck, and I'm always researching. There's nothing else I do unless I'm making videos or working on our website. So let's get to it. What are the 4 reasons, you might ask, that we're concerned about? Well, one is the leadership. Mr. Scott Dawson is the leader of this conference. 2, we're kind of calling it 1B because he was in the December conference. He's not going into 2020, so we just called him 1B, but he's definitely something to be concerned about. If they bring in Lecrae, who else are they going to bring in that could take advantage of your children's conscience and hero worship that most teenagers and preteens go through? Number 2 is John Christ, the person that was replaced. He actually replaced himself, which is another major concern of the discernment of Mr. Scott Dawson. And number 3, last but not least, Mr. Kanye West. You've probably been hearing about him a lot lately, and if not, you definitely need to do more research for the sake of your children. But this is something very important that all parents should be aware of, whether they've been a Christian for a long time or they're just new to it. Proverbs 22:6 teach a youth about the way he should go. Even when he's old, he will not depart from it. So that's an important part of parenthood. So here we are, the founder of Strength to Stand, Mr. Scott Dawkins. As you can see here in a little bit of his bio that we got from over at scottdawson.org/Scott, tells us that Scott, through his organization, Scott Dawson Evangelistic Association, has put on a number of youth conferences similar to Strength to Stand. That's kind of a first red flag for me. I mean, a person that develops a product or a business, entrepreneurs tend to move on from one business to another, one product to another, because they like the thrill of inventing and the thrill of starting a new business. But when it comes to youth conferences, tried and true is good. So the fact that this guy's done a number of these, why has he moved on? Has he had to move on? Was it by choice? Kind of makes you wonder. And he doesn't say anything about that on his website, which also kind of makes you wonder. You'd think somewhere along the way, though, between being an adult who claims to have been a Christian for a while and leading so many different youth conferences over the years, that he'd have grasped three major concepts in Christianity. Pardon me. My asthma's getting the better of me. So anyway, not to excuse the lack of good judgment here, or the lack of discernment, or a lack of a desire to protect the youth of America, but looking at people like Greg Laurie, others that are constantly making excuses for people like Kanye and Lecrae, who we mentioned earlier, Lauren Daigle, and a lot of other Christian, quote-unquote Christian artists that have kind of moved away, strayed from Christian music, or even not calling themselves a Christian anymore. And they made money off the backs of hardworking American Christians, or Christians all over the world for that matter. And then they move away from Christian music, say they don't need us anymore, or we're kind of ignorant, and they want to make money in the mainstream because it pays more. It's harder to get into because it pays more, but once they make it big and get on the top of the Christian church, it's a whole lot easier to make it big in the crossover world. So, kind of concerned about some of the people that have been in some of these strength to stand conferences. But the Bible is very clear about three things. Jesus is very protective of children. He frowns on those who hurt them or confuse them spiritually. And he packs a mighty spiritual punch to those who do either. 2, calls us to be spiritually awake and to be discerners. And 3, the New Testament tells us to lay hands on no man suddenly. That means just because someone makes a suggestion, you don't immediately giddily jump up and call somebody and say, "Hey, you wanna come be a headliner at my youth conference?" I mean, we don't even know for sure if this particular person that we're talking about is the actual Christian. So the last thing you want to do is just grab somebody and have them come be a headliner at your youth conference. Scott also says you might be asking, saying you might be asking yourselves, well, why are you saying those things about these people? Why? Because Paul tells us to be spiritually mature, discerning, and Jesus tells us to judge a person's spiritual fruit. Well, some of the people that Mr. Dawson has brought to teach or entertain the youth at his rally should never be on a stage at a Christian youth conference. As a Christian parent of a teenage son and an 8-year-old daughter, I would no more send one of my kids to one of these conferences, especially not the one on January 18th to the 20th in 2020, than I would shoot them into outer space without a rocket or oxygen. So, reason 1.A, Lecrae. Like a lot of people that were formerly considering themselves Christian artists, in his case a Christian rapper, which some might call an oxymoron, never the twain shall meet, but moving on. The Strength to Stand conference in December of 2019, just earlier this month, had Lecrae as a headliner. People that are actually born again Christians should be outraged with people like Lecrae and more recently Lauren Daigle, like we mentioned, who have started in Christian music because it's easier to break into than secular music. Then they drop their Christian fans to the curb like a dirty diaper. Yes, we are supposed to pray even for those who fleece the flock and take advantage of Christians and then stop calling themselves Christian artists. However, while we're supposed to forgive and pray for people like them, we are not required, nor should we, to spend our money to line their already full pockets. For instance, Lauren Daigle, 25, 26 years old, and she's already got over $15 million in her check account. I'd be happy with a third of that, and I've been working since I was 13. So then when she drops us to the curb and says Christians are ignorant people and that we shouldn't say that homosexuals are sinners, when she admits that she doesn't know the difference between right and wrong herself, which kind of makes one worry about her actual Christian authenticity. authentication. Is she an authentic Christian is what I'm trying to say. Sorry. Everybody in our family's been sick off and on, and it's been a long week. So, sort of makes you wonder about who they're bringing on. This gentleman, John Crist, calls himself a Christian comedian. However, for about the last year and a half, he's taken to bashing Christians on Facebook and Twitter, mostly Twitter. For instance, when people started questioning why Lauren Daigle went on Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, Ellen, couldn't somehow, after claiming to be a Christian for over 10 years, couldn't tell those people why homosexuality was a sin, refused to say anything about it when she was on a radio show being questioned by a disc jockey, and then later on said Christians are ignorant and I don't want to be a Christian entertainer anymore. Never called myself that. The label was just put on me. And now she's seen wearing clothes that are very revealing, shall we say, and just leave it at that. And something you wouldn't expect a Christian would be wearing. Not that I'm judging, but looking at her fruits, Christian fruits, that is, so get that out of your mind. You tend to wonder. John Crist told people to shut up and leave Lauren Daigle alone. Well, now, for over 2 years, women have been complaining about this man sexually harassing them, and in some cases sending videos of him doing things that no man should send a young lady that he's not married to. Before we talk about this situation much more, if you've got little kids that you don't want hearing things of a sexual nature, or maybe you could put your headphones on to listen or go somewhere else or send them to their rooms, because this is stuff that little kids should probably not be listening to. But there was a article here fairly recently on Charisma News, charismanews.com, and he had to cancel some tour dates because of reports of sexting, harassment, manipulation, other things. So he was being accused by a couple of women, and then when this article came out, it's like young women started coming out of the woodwork saying, he did that to me too. And one of the really sad things about all this, I'd never heard of this supposed Christian comedian until I saw this article. And then after that, I saw where he was slamming Christians who were questioning Lauren Daigle not standing up for her faith, or even talking about Jesus. I don't know. You go out in the world on shows like Ellen DeGeneres or Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel, you would think a Christian, if they were authentic, would at least mention Jesus once. I mean, even my favorite quarterback from the Seahawks, every time he's on camera, he talks about his love for Jesus and how everything he does, he gives to the glory of God. Russell Wilson, in case you weren't sure. But one of the saddest things about this whole sordid, I hate to use the word affair for obvious reasons, but this sordid situation, before, well, let me back up a minute. So not only is John Crist no longer a part of the January 18 to 20, 2020 Stand Up for Strength to Stand conference, he had been scheduled to have a comedy show on a very popular streaming called Netflix. I don't know if you've ever seen any of the stuff on Netflix, but most of it's so evil. I wouldn't watch it myself, let alone my kids watch it. Luciferian type shows, witchcraft, shows that would be considered as soft porn when I was a kid. And there's no control over what's watched. And, you know, I've always read in the Bible where Jesus says, if the world hates me, they're gonna hate you. You got to learn how to deal with it, because the world hates me and they're gonna hate you even worse, because it's gonna be more of an evil time in the last days. So why is Netflix signing John Crist up for a very, very lucrative comedy show? I mean, some of the comedians that started off as nobodies, who had a couple of comedy shows on Netflix, are now world famous multi-millionaires. So I don't understand why this man, A, would sign up with Netflix if he's a Christian, but B, why is Netflix loving on him if he is a Christian? I mean, does nobody ever ask these questions anymore? So, you know, before we go any further, we need to pray for this young man that he finds a spiritually wise counselor. He mentions in the article where he removed himself from the Strength to Stand program that he'd seen counselors numerous times for this issue. I'd suggest he find a good Christian counselor, because he's not going to have much luck. They're just going to make excuses for him if he goes to a regular counselor, because that's all counselors do do anymore these days, if they're part of the world for the most part. You know, I suggest he seek God and read the Word of God. The more he delves into God and His Word, the easier it gets to withstand the devil. The devil invented porn, and he knows how addictive it is. He invented sexual addiction. It's as bad as a narcotic drug. It provides a dopamine high, and you continue to get more and more stimulation, and you need more and more stimulation to achieve the climax, which causes the dopamine high. I'd pray that Mr. Chris gains grace to conquer this problem, so we can go to talk to young adults in an appropriate setting to help them avoid such things. No woman should ever have to be stalked on her cell phone and have videos of a man pleasuring himself texted to her on her phone, especially when she never wanted to see them or expected to see them. It's not something a woman should have to deal with. We're not judging Mr. Chris. That is for God to do. However, we're told by Jesus and Paul to be wise discerners of the truth and to judge a person's fruit. There probably hasn't been a man alive in the last 30 or 40 years that hasn't had a struggle with pornography, and there's hope, but only in Jesus, and only if you stop hiding the truth, and only if you stop hiding in secrets, and stop hiding your secrets. You need to join a Christian men's recovery group specializing in porn and sexual addictions. The worst part about all of this is that Scott Dawson didn't remove Mr. Christ, even after he made a public statement of sexual addictions and sorrow for harassing these women and embarrassing his family, church, and his God. Mr. Christ removed himself from the lineup, which leads to our earlier question of Mr. Dawson's spiritual wisdom and Christian discernment skills. I know we all fall short of God's glory, and we all fell short of God's glory before accepting Jesus, but we're called to be discerners, folks. We're called to judge people's fruit. This is one of the many reasons why One Stone Ministries doesn't practice hero worship. Doesn't matter how popular someone is. Don't aid and abet in their sins by standing up for the truth and speaking up for Jesus and the cross. You help stop those awful situations, folks. And my gosh, how much more should we do this when it involves youth? people have been talking about Mr. Christ for over 2 years. So if he was booked by Mr. Scott over 2 years ago, don't you think Mr. Scott should follow through with the people he's booked to make sure, through a little bit of research and intelligence, to not keep people on if they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing and shouldn't be part of children, teenage girls? Hello? Is nobody else hearing alarms going off? A man that sends images and videos of himself masturbating to women that didn't ask for them, and they're giving him access to teenage girls. Does nothing else seem strange about that to you? It sure does to me. Moving on. So, reason number 3, good old Kanye West. I'm not sure if you've heard about him much lately and all the things that he's been a part of over the last 4 years, but, and I use the term loosely here, he says that he had a great conversion, a supernatural conversion, where he saw Jesus Christ and he was converted to Christianity. This was in April of 2019. So it's only been 10 months. Dude's already been made an ordained minister. Dude's already being invited by dozens of churches to preach from their pulpit. Well, we'll just move on, let you see for yourself. So, to make the serious lack of spiritual discernment a billion times worse, who does Mr. Dawson bring on board to replace Mr. Christ? In a video interview that was posted online a couple of weeks ago, Scott spoke about feeling pressured to find someone else to replace Christ. A friend called him up and said, "Hey, I'm mentoring someone famous." Clunk. The hook caught in Mr. Dawson's mouth. In the video, you could literally see Dawson fighting to control his excitement. So, who is this we're talking about anyway? None other than Kanye West. Christian moms, dads, grandparents, if you're thinking about paying to send your kid to this conference January 18th to the 20th, and you're looking for advice, my advice is simple. It's one word: don't. Even if you're not a Christian but thought about sending your kids to a Christian youth conference because it might be good for them spiritually, don't. Why, you might ask? Lots of reasons. We've done a couple of videos on our website and social media sites about Kanye and recommended several videos of another ministry, so we're not going into full detail here. But you as parents need to be aware and wary of Kanye West, so we'll provide some basic details for you. So over the last 6 years, Kanye on a number of occasions has testified in concert on video. This has actually been videotaped. That he sold his soul to the devil for prosperity. He's never testified sorrow, humility, or a repentant sinner's heart about this either. He stated on a number of occasions that he is God. In fact, he's been diagnosed by mental health professionals as being bipolar, and in the last 8 months to a year, he stopped taking that medicine, and he said he doesn't need it anymore because he's God. Okay. For a variety of reasons, my heart goes out to people with mental health challenges. I fight depression every day and take Zoloft for anxiety, so I know it's hard. But you don't stop taking your medicine without doctor's recommendation because you think you're God. Because you're not. He stated on a number of occasions that he is God, of course, like we just said. And of course, he's never testified sorrow, humility, or sinner's heart about that either. He's constantly wearing hoodies with a fleece outer lining almost every time. He practically pets it and says he loves this fleece. Shortly after talking about his new fleece lineup In some of his videos, he immediately afterwards goes into his church merch lineup. Socks for $50, hoodies for over $200, shirts for over $150, and jackets for over $400 to sell in churches where he visits. Just to name a few things. It's not hard to figure out that he's fleecing the flock at every church he visits to, quote unquote, spread his gospel. His gospel. Not the gospel of Christ, but his gospel. He's always talking about spreading his gospel, but never talks about really spreading the gospel of Christ. Of course, if you're God, I guess you don't really have to. So, in his newest album, Jesus is King, he has a song named On God. Since the album is entitled Jesus is King, you hope for some lyrics like, keep your eyes on God, keep your eyes on Jesus, keep your focus on God. Instead, what you get are whiny lyrics which state that all the negative things in his life are on God. Takes no responsibility for his life whatsoever. He just blames God. Must be convenient. On his newest album, he has a song titled Closed on Sunday, in which you hope you'll see a video where he goes to the owner of Chick-fil-A, because that's what it's about, Chick-fil-A, and tells him that he should keep up the fight and not cave into the LGBTQS plus community. After all, Chick-fil-A is making more money than 3 other fast food chains all put together now since the LGBTQS plus community started boycotting them a few years ago. Then you find out, sadly, that Chick-fil-A actually did cave in a few weeks ago in the strange video of closed. Oh, let's back up. How did they cave in? They stopped giving money to the Salvation Army and Athletes for Christ. 2 very well-known organizations that help a lot of people that are homeless, going without food, going without clothing, down on their luck, extremely depressed, and in many cases homeless. And that's who Chick-fil-A stopped giving money to, because those 2 are 2 of the few Christian organizations that, unlike Chick-fil-A, apparently refuse to bend their knee to Lucifer and his LGBTQS plus posse, who is constantly attacking Christian business owners. So in the strange video that Kanye made of Closed on Sunday, you see the West family out in the desert in 8 military-looking SUVs with all of their friends, and a very weird get-up that makes the video, with the odd lighting on the video and the outfits that they're wearing, the military-type vehicles in a sandy desert with a mountainous background. It looks like something that would be in a Mad Max movie series, and in a lot of ways it reminds me of Mad Max 3, where he finds the kids in the airplane. And about a quarter of the way through the video, after everybody's wandering around looking really confused like they just came from another dimension or something, you see Mom Kardashian standing with her daughter and Kanye, and you can see that she's smiling. And if you're looking, my wife actually missed it the first time through, but I'm kind of a pain in the butt for proofreading and watching videos and proofing them, although I don't do that on my own, and I should. But if you pay attention, you can see her smiling and mouthing the words, "Thank you." If you don't know the full truth, you might think she's saying thank you to Chick-fil-A on behalf of her husband, who became a girlfriend, Bruce Jenner. But apparently not, as recently she's outed herself for leaving her wife, Bruce. How does that work? A wife named Bruce? Well, in case you don't know, Bruce Jenner lopped his manhood off and became a girl. I don't know how that works when you're already married to a woman. What does that relationship become? But she's outed herself recently for leaving her wife, Bruce, for a new girlfriend, who apparently was actually born a female. But doesn't that leave a strange story around the holidays for the kids? Hi, Grandma number one. Hi, Grandma number two. Hi, Grandma who used to be Grandpa. Great Christian morals in that family. Just saying. Just saying. Don't shoot the messenger, folks. But Kanye's on the cover of the Rolling Stones regarding his Yeezus album. Yeah, folks, you may not know that 2016 he put out an album called Yeezus. Pretty much mocks Jesus throughout, and God and Christians throughout the whole album. And on the cover image, he's wearing a crown of thorns. You'll see these images in a few minutes. Not once having ever repented from that or speaking out in a testimony, wishing that he'd never done it. So, Kanye is also seen in an image with three very scantily clad women, and he's wearing a crown of thorns with his hand squeezing the buttocks of one of the women. If this isn't evil enough, they have an upside down cross in the middle of the image. But at the same time, there's an image of a semi-naked Kanye wearing an old-fashioned loincloth covering and red sneakers, posing as if he were hanging from the cross. The last few years, Kanye and his wife have gone down to Rio, where the famous statue of Jesus stands. Granted, it's a Catholic statue, but nonetheless, they're both standing there pretending to be hanging from a cross with their legs crossed and their arms up in the air, hanging in a crucified type pose. More recently, Kanye poses this Halloween, most recent, as the Lord of the Flies. Lord of the Flies is an ancient term, as well as the Lord of the Dead, Beelzebub, also known as Lucifer, and his wife and children dress up as maggots. If I was Kim, I don't know if I would have said yes to that one. But hey, she's the one that's married to him. I don't know about anyone else specifically referring to All Hallows Eve, but it's a night of pagan / Wiccan rituals, very evil. They do terrible things, sacrifice humans, and honor their god Lucifer. I and my family do not participate in Halloween, but if I did, I certainly wouldn't honor Lucifer by dressing as him. Call me prude all you want, I don't care. And then we have the wholesome album cover with a woman's buttocks sticking out 90%, 98, almost 100% out of her thong on the album called The Life of Pablo, where Kanye mostly portrays himself as being more popular and more important than the Apostle Paul and Jesus and a whole bunch of other people. Then we have Kanye appearing on Sunday, November 18th this year on the television broadcast of Joel Osteen's church. During the morning service, Kanye rambles with Joe about a few things, looking totally lost. Later on at the evening service, he and his choir performed some of the Kanye's more recent opera pieces. The stage that was set was shown from above the whole time and was obviously the Eye of Horus. Kanye has appeared since outing himself as a Christian on the Jimmy Kimmel Show, Jimmy Fallon, Oprah, Ellen, and a host of others. Hollywood loves him. They can't get enough of him. He's been on Jimmy Kimmel like 5 times in the last year alone. Doesn't Jesus say in the Bible, the world hates me, so get over it. Don't be surprised if they hate you also. If Kanye truly is a Christian now, wouldn't you think they'd be throwing rocks at him and screaming at him and telling him to get off their stage because he's a Christian? Not embracing him, giving him interviews with a positive spin. On one of the interviews before his April 2019 radical conversion, he's seen talking about the 88, aligning the audience's sex chakra. In the same interview, he also talks about one of several times on stage that he brags about selling his soul to Lucifer. In case you're wondering what the 88 is, it's when you get through music, through speech, through tantric chants, you get the audience start weaving back and forth on their feet and their heads weaving back and forth, and when you look at them, the way their heads move to the left and to the right, up and down, back and forth to the left and the right, it looks like they're making a sideways 8 or the infinity sign. He talks about proper lighting and his use of aligning their sexual chakra through movement and music. And he's proud to brag about getting his audience of hundreds, if not thousands of people to be all aligned in their sex chakra. So one doesn't really know why he brags about that, but one can assume a lot. And since he's never stated that he's repented from that, taking advantage of people and aligning his chakra, which means that you're doing either yoga or some sort of Hindu meditation. Aligning your chakra means you're getting your multiple levels of spirits lined up so that you can get in touch with your Kundalini spirit, which is a spirit guide into the spirit world, aka a demon. He hasn't repented of any of that stuff. At least he hasn't talked about it. He used to talk about it openly when he did it, but now that he's supposedly a Christian, and he's had all kinds of supposed Christian mentors, but he's not coming out from any of this stuff repenting. So just 7 days before Kanye appeared twice on Sunday at Joel Osteen's church, Kanye performed on stage with his brother-in-law. Who's that, you might ask? Travis Scott. What's so bad that you might not? What's so bad about that, you might naively ask? Well, I naively asked that when my wife started explaining to me who Travis Scott was. He's yet another rapper who just happens to be a fully dedicated Luciferian and has admitted on TV and radio on a number of occasions to hating both God and Christians. Kanye sang a few of his old songs with Scott and one of his new ones from Jesus is King. Kind of strange, you might think, performing a song from a gospel album with a Luciferian. He looked like his old self rapping out the swear words and violence in his earlier songs or songs that Scott had written. The odd thing is earlier in the fall from his ranch in Wyoming, in his Beats One interview with I want to say Kyle, but I don't think that's right. One of the journalists from Apple Music, when he did his interview for Beats One, he said that he's not an entertainer anymore. He's a Christian. He's talking about God and Jesus Christ and his love for the world. He's not an entertainer anymore. He's an ordained minister. That's all I can do to keep from gagging. So anyway, what's so bad about singing a couple of old songs for old time's sake with his brother-in-law, who just happens to be a Luciferian? Well, they performed at Astro World. Astro World has been a concert for rappers and rockers for the last couple of falls. It matches the name of Scott's more recent album of the same name, and also Scott is heavily into astro charts and zodiac readings, which come from Kabbalah, which comes from Babylonian mystic arts, which comes from the Zohar. If you don't know what any of those are, there's lots of videos out there. We're about ready to start doing some videos and articles on our website about those, but right now there's plenty of them out there. So the other problem with Astroworld this year especially is one of the other mainline acts who performed on the same stage on the same night, not at the same time as Scott and Kanye, but they were part of the same organization, the same. I'm sure they talked at least once or twice before they went on stage as they were planning the Astro World, is what I'm getting at. And the Bible says, don't be unequally yoked with evil. Don't be unequally yoked with people that you don't want to be associated with. Well, what's so bad about Marilyn Manson, you might ask? I mean, Marilyn Monroe was okay. Well, Marilyn Manson is a man. He's also a Luciferian. He's kind of somewhere between mainstream pop music and rock and roll. But his main song of the night was Antichrist Superstar, which took precedence over Jesus Christ Superstar, which was a song out of the 70s, which was a mockery of Jesus in the Christian church back in the 70s. So as if Jesus Christ Superstar wasn't bad enough, Marilyn Manson had to sing Antichrist Superstar, and when he was done with the song, he pulled a Bible out, threw it down on the stage, poured some sort of fluid on it, and lit it on fire and let it burn completely on stage. In fact, the same stage that Kanye West had just performed on with his brother-in-law, another Luciferian. So less than a week before going on stage with Joel Osteen, he was on stage 8 months after his radical conversion, don't forget. I mean, I've known some people that were radically converted and they gave up everything instantly. That's the whole part of what a radical conversion is you're so convicted of your sin by the Holy Spirit when you give yourself over to Christ that you give up all your girlfriends, all your boyfriends, all the bars you used to hang out with. You throw all your drugs down the toilet. You throw all your booze down the drain. And never the twain shall meet ever again the rest of your life. That's what a radical conversion to Christianity is, folks. But not for Kanye. Yeah, he's out there rapping with his brother-in-law. It's actually not even his brother-in-law. This guy got together with one of Kim's sisters, got her pregnant without marrying her. Honest, upstanding Christian gentleman that he is. And they just call him the brother-in-law. So, going back to the avoiding appearance of evil, if he actually was listening to his mentors that have worked with him at least once a week since April, you'd think there'd be some fruit there, folks, but the only fruit we see, as the church lady used to say, is the fruits of the devil. All joking aside. So let's take a look at some images that tell a story that Kanye thinks is okay to share with the youth of America, and apparently so does the founder of Strength to Stand 2020. Most parents in the U.S. don't have a clue how evil the music is that their children are listening to. Most don't have a clue how evil the music of Kanye is as they fork out millions of dollars across the U.S. and abroad for his music for their children. Most Christian parents don't even have a clue, judging by how many are standing up making excuses for him, how dark and evil Kanye still is, despite his radical conversion. Moving on, this is the first thing that hit me when I started doing some research on Kanye. Pardon my French, but this royally pisses me off. My Jesus was crucified because he loved me. My Jesus gave up his life because he loved me. even though I'm a dirty, rotten, worthless sinner, just like the rest of y'all around the world, even if I was the only sinner in the world, he still would have given his life to save me. And this punk comes along and mocks Jesus by calling himself Jesus and appearing in a crown of thorns as if he's being crucified. In the lower left corner of the picture, you can even see that he's got a fake whip mark on his shoulder. This really makes me angry. I have to forgive him because God tells me to, and I pray for him. I've prayed for him several times in the last week. But I do not like him or his crappy music or his images that he seems to think are funny. We mentioned this one earlier. Here we have the very provocative dressed women. Kanye with a crown of thorns, and it even looks like it's a golden crown of thorns, because don't you know he's better than Jesus? 50% more popular than Paul and better than Jesus. And then there's a bunch of other jewelry on his arm, around his neck. And then his name, Jesus. And then another thing that really pisses me off is the upside down cross. You don't get much more heretical and insulting to God than what we have right here. I mean, yeah, I'm offended because he's got his hand on some woman's butt. Don't have a clue who she is. He probably doesn't either, knowing his history of using and abusing women. But he's putting this stuff on albums knowing that kids are going to buy it. And parental advisory, irregardless, he knows that ignorant parents, hopefully not any Christian parents, of course, are going to buy his crap for their children. Come on, parents, let's start waking up and doing our job. So this was done about the same time as this Jesus, the Book of Jesus and the Jesus album. And he's got an insidious, glittering look on his face. Anybody else notice that? It's like he's challenging you to challenge him on his lifestyle. Enough on this. So this is another one that really torques my hide, as an old salsa commercial used to say. Really chaps my hide. As if the last two images aren't proof positive enough that Kanye has mocked God and Jesus every chance he's had. This is probably the most vulgar, heretical, and shameful act of Kanye. Here we see him standing in the pose of Jesus on the cross with his feet twisted, in a position that Jesus, sort of in the position that Jesus' feet would have been. The Romans were much less kind than Kanye is to himself. But on his feet are a pair of his tennis shoes that he's hawking in this most disgusting, vile, evil, wicked image. And the statement down below on the left, the new Messiah. And we got the life of Pablo on the album. Kanye mentions how much more important and famous he is than Paul the Apostle. And also, supposedly, when he got mad at the producers of Saturday Night Live for moving the stage around without getting his permission or approaching him for permission, he's heard ranting in the background off stage. Supposedly he didn't know that they were recording it and they were going to release it online, but really, yeah, right. So online you can hear, just Google Kanye's rant on Saturday Night Live backstage. He's ranting that he's 50% more well-known and popular than Paul the Apostle. Based on what, I might ask? And he's more popular than Jesus and a bunch of famous authors. And he's, more famous, and people like him more than the Apostle Paul. And quite frankly, although I'm not a mental health counselor, he sounds like someone who's got a problem with bipolar that hasn't taken his medicine in several months. But this particular album was in 2016. The Saturday Night Live charade was less than a year ago. So then, as if all that wasn't enough, if you can read this, the book of Jesus, Genesis, says, I am a God. Everybody says, who does he think he is? I just told you who I think I am, or who I was. I was a God. I just told him that I think I am. I'm a God. Kanye West. So this book, everybody at first thought it was a book written by Kanye West, but three guys that were friends came out and said that they wrote it to honor Kanye West. But in the book, everywhere the name of God is removed for Kanye West. As you can see, it's not a very thick book. It's just the book of Genesis, but it does enough heresy in a very thin book on its own. And even though Kanye West apparently didn't write it, and who knows, these three guys could be scapegoats, so Kanye looks better in the eyes of people. But he's never came out and spoken against the book. He's never come out and recused himself from it. He's never said, I had no part in it. I don't like this. This is anathema to Christianity. This is heresy. This is evil. Nothing like that. Sorry, my heart groans in pain over this garbage. So here we have an image of Kanye on the right, Marilyn Manson, and his brother-in-law at Astroworld. And then in their Christian home, quote unquote, we have Kim on some sort of video online, and I got this image from crud, I'm having a brain freeze. A call for an uprising. YouTube channel of a call for an uprising. In the background, you can see the pyramid with the all-seeing eye. You can see that Kim is in a pyramid. Unfortunately, the image, part of it was lopped off, so you can't see the full pyramid, but you can see the walls of the pyramid, and she's sitting inside of it. She's sitting in a tantric mantra pose. The only difference between what she's doing and the typical tantric mantra is the fact that instead of having her hands loosely placed with her thumb and her middle finger together, she is banging on some chimes with, it's kind of hard to tell whether that's a piece of metal on the right or if it's a piece of crystal, and then the pyramid, the little pyramid, is a crystal pyramid. You got all kinds of candles. She's not doing this to be silly. She actually does meditation, and it's not meditating on the Bible day and night, not meditating on the goodness of the Lord without pause. So, moving on, all things you don't normally see in a Christian household. And then here is the promised picture of the family of Mama Maggot and the little maggots and the Lord of the Flies. So just as a reminder, in case you forgot or in case you don't know, the Lord of the Flies, also known as the Lord of the Dead, aka Baal Zebub, aka Lucifer, you just got to wonder why this is this year, 5 months after he had a radical conversion. You got to sort of wonder where in the world a radically converted Christian would come up with the idea to dress as Lucifer for Halloween. And then we've got the all-seeing eye of Horus. I point out the following: the white going around the top are the eyebrows, and then the center is the eye, and the round white thing the conductor is standing on is the pupil. On the left and right side are the eyelashes. Many have tried to deny this New Age occultic image, but it's as obvious as the nose on your face, or the misspelling of your Y-O-R-U. If your eyes are open while you're looking, it's very obvious. In fact, the choir is dressed up in really weird looking all black attire, black hats, black hoodies or sweatshirts, black pants. It's to help them blend into the black in the middle. And we'll just let you take a look at that for a second. You can go Google this. I'm not pulling this out of my hat. It's on Joel Osteen's website, among other places. Lakewood Church. Oh, and I gotta add here, Kanye West and his legal posse are actually trying to trademark the term Sunday meeting or go to Sunday, or 2 or 3 other terms that have been Christian terms for going to church for hundreds of years, and he's trying to copyright and trademark those terms for his Sunday service group. That was the other one he wanted to copyright and trademark, was a Sunday service. Like Kanye just thought that up in 2019. Hollywood can't make this stuff up. Speaking of Hollywood, one has to wonder if the world is supposed to hate those that follow Christ. Why is Jimmy Kimmel fawning all over Kanye? Things to make you go, folks. Okay, so we gotta stop and talk about this because there's a little bit of backlay that you need to be aware of. So this image has nothing to do with a supposedly more modest Kim, because obviously there's nothing modest about that outfit. It's just black. But anyway, there have been at least 3 interviews and several dozen pictures shot in the last 4 or 5 months with Kanye wearing his new church merch. The one that he's the most fond of is the blue hoodie, and his socks. One pair of socks is $50. Shirts are $200. $450 hoodies, $700 to $2,000 jackets. And at Coachella, where Kanye first introduced his church merch, they sold out in less than an hour. Folks, I admit to being humbly poor. I go buy socks and shirts and shoes at Walmart because you can get shoes for $14. You can get 8 socks for $4. You can get a marked down shirt for $1, and it looks really nice. Nobody knows that I buy my clothes. Well, they do now, but every time Kanye visits the church, he brings along his church merch and a crew to sell it. I'm struggling to remember, but I think I remember somewhere in the gospel where Jesus goes around with a whipping nose, and telling them, screaming at them that they turned God's temple into a selling place and a den of thieves, and he kicked everybody out of the temple. Oh yeah, that is in the Bible. There was a video that we reviewed recently. We haven't quite gotten it up on YouTube yet. We're still going through some post-production issues with it, but Kanye's being interviewed by the reporter from Apple Music in a now famous or infamous Beats One video at his new ranch in Wyoming. For quite a bit of the video, you can see Kanye touching and rubbing his fleece hoodie, very similar, if not the same as the one you see here. It might be the same hoodie, but it's made out of fleece, and he's going on talking about the inside of the fleece, talking about the lining. He's even asking, it's very odd that he's asking the interviewer what he thinks about the fleece. You're left asking yourself, why would he care when an interviewer from Apple Music thinks about fleece? It's material, folks. Well, I've put 2 and 2 together and figured it out. I don't know if anybody else has. There's some other pastors that are actually speaking out against Kanye and his radical conversion that might have gotten it, although I haven't seen them mention it in any of their videos. But let's just call a spade a spade. The way he's fondling his fleece hoodie, the way he's constantly talking about how much he loves his fleece hoodie, and everywhere he goes, he always takes his fleece hoodie with him, and he wears his fleece hoodie to church, he wears his fleece hoodie to dinner, and as you can see under his overcoat, as he's going out with Kim, he's wearing his fleece. Remember how these people are buying socks for $50? On the bottom of them, or on the top of them, I forget which, it says, "In the footsteps of Jesus." Most of his shirts that cost over $200 don't even have any logo at all on them, just Kanye's label. Same thing for the $450 hoodies. Are you getting the whole idea where he's constantly saying he loves his fleece? He's fleecing the flock, people. He's fleecing the church. And people are too stupid to get it. People bought out his church merch in less than an hour at Coachella, and most of the people there at Coachella weren't even Christians. Fleecing the flock. He loves his fleece. He was trying to not laugh. You could see it in his eyes. And he was in kind of a far away, foggy place. You almost thought it was like a honey, what's that called where they have mental breakdowns like Britney Spears?
MK Ultra.
Yeah, it was almost like he was having an MK Ultra / bipolar meltdown, because he had this faraway look in his eye and he kept turning his head. But now that I think back on it, it almost looked like he was trying to keep from laughing. Every time, I mean, he must have mentioned he loved his fleece a dozen times or more in one interview. Come on, folks. Let's wake up to reality here. And now... Sorry. Folks, we need to pray for this man. For a lot of reasons. Spiritually, mentally. Maybe he's going a little bit off of his rocker because he's putting so many hours in. I mean, he's still producing records for people like, there's a multitude of rappers that he's producing music for. People like Jay-Z, who are known Luciferians. In fact, he's even said that he loves producing for Jay-Z, who one of his favorite lines in a song is F God, and it's a 4-letter word that rhymes with duck. And he says that he loves producing with Jay-Z. In fact, he honors Jay-Z by saying that he's his mentor and that he's fairly recently joined the Masons. He's working his way up the Mason ladder. And he says that Jay-Z is mentoring him in the Luciferian circles as well. Of course, Luciferians, Kabbalists, it all comes from Babylon. There's nothing new under the sun, like Solomon said, folks. But anyway, the next several pages, if you had any doubt that Kanye is still mocking God in this church, check your pulse, because you're dead if you don't get this. You're either dead physically or you're dead spiritually, or both. So this is one of several images of the Opera of Mary, Kanye's latest Sunday gathering that he produced recently. And everybody on stage is just like Kanye. They're sprayed all over with silver, and they're wearing fake fat people silver clothing. Looks like a bunch of big silver raisins. So there's Mary on the left. He's hugging Mary. And then over on the right, they're bowing to Mary. And in the middle... So, still doubting? There's more. So, not only is Kanye mocking the church and God, the world is mocking God and the church via mocking Kanye. Everybody in the world knows that Kanye is not a Christian, folks. Why don't Christians understand it? So on your way to meet the Grand Wizard of Oz, you're bound to run into Silver Kanye. The eye-catching outfit of Kanye West in silver turned out to be the center of attraction. And I don't doubt this one at all. Kanye West painted silver is now everyone's favorite meme. Still believe he's not mocking Christ in the church, folks? As Zig Ziglar used to say in the 70s and 80s and early 90s, you need to get a checkup from the neck up, folks. Still having doubts? The above images were from what Kanye called the play about Mary, i.e. Jesus' mother. While One Stone Ministries abhors the heresies that the Catholic Church group, the Catholic group, because I refuse to call them the Catholic Church, has created from Mary, the very fact that he's making a mockery out of Jesus' mother and Jesus and the church is more than any true Bible-believing Christian could stomach. The people that sat and applauded when this play was over were either part of Lucifer's posse with an agenda, or if they were somehow actually born-again Christians, they have nada discernment and spiritual wisdom whatsoever. A brain-dead chimp could see through this thinly veiled insult to God. The next image is a double mockery. They're mocking Kanye, but not for mocking God, but for how stupid he looks, which in itself is an insult for God. Why are no pastors speaking out, screaming out from the pulpit for this embarrassing sham to end? Why aren't more Christians shouting from the mountaintops about this? The rocks and stones are crying out all over the world. People, wake up. Need any more reasons why you shouldn't allow your children, or worse yet, waste your money on the Strength to Stand 2020? Yes, folks, we have the Kanye burrito. Somebody actually made this picture. The lower half is a burrito wrapped in a sheet of aluminum foil. The upper half is Kanye's outfit from the Opera of Mary. And they're mocking Kanye, they're mocking church and the God because Kanye is pretending to be a Christian. Still have doubts? This is the last thought that I had. I don't know, did you ever hear Jeff Foxworthy when he first started his white collar comedy tour? Remember the part where bill collector came and the guy says, well, do you have a check? And Jeff Foxworthy says, sure, I got a check. You'll take a check? Just a minute. Well, you can almost hear Lucifer laughing his butt off down in hell over the foolishness of some Christian youth leaders. Can't you? Come speak at a youth conference? Sure, I'll come speak at a youth conference. You don't mind if my posse of wolves and I come on over, do you? So there's multiple reasons not to send your kids to this conference in January 2020. However, we've mentioned 4 here, only mentioned 4. There are 4 large glaring non-reasons, so we'll stop with just 4 at this point. May come out with a part 2 if enough time is available between now and the conference. Our last point on Kanye West for this article, as if everything else in the last 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 40 seconds hasn't been enough. Our last point on Kanye West for this article relating to Strength to Stand Youth Concert is a portion of lyrics of one of his most recent songs from the album Jesus is King. It would be totally appropriate to warn you about all the lyrics of all of his albums, but these particular lyrics should send a tingle of discomfort and concern down your spine. If they don't, you should certainly question your fruits as one calling yourself a Christian parent, in our humble opinion. So, lyrics from Selah on the Jesus is King album by Kanye West. And here we go. Selah. God is king, we the soldiers. Ultra beam out the solar. Little backlay on that. Kanye did a song with Kirk Franklin, where they're talking about lighting in certain areas, like at concerts and stuff like that. We're trying to close this. Here we go. There. That was really challenging. So they're talking about light beams, light waves, and how they can catch a light beam to meld with spirit guides. Spirit guides are also known as demons, folks. This is Kanye West and Kirk Franklin, 2 supposed Christians. I've been hearing Kirk Franklin speak since he was a young man at a church in Washington, and this was back in the day where he had to bring his own cassette player for his music because he didn't trust others to key it up. So I mean, I've been following Kirk Franklin's music for a long time, and you could have heard my jaw hitting the floor on the other side of the world when I found out that he was teaming up with the likes of Kanye West. Anyway, so that's that part of those lyrics. I'm not going to repeat all of these. Pour the lean out slower, got us clean out of soda. In case you don't know what lean is, it's an illegal narcotic made by cold cough medicine, and the same thing that one of the same ingredients that they make methamphetamines out of, and some other interesting things. And it's actually activated by Sprite. which is where you get the part clean out of soda. So, in his Beats One interview, Kanye talks about keeping drugs out of his house and out of his studio, which is where he does his music production in his house. So here we're either seeing Kanye talk about doing illegal narcotics, which is what lean is, or he's got lean in his home that his music posse uses. Either way, he's got drugs around his wife and kids. Probably not the best thing for a Christian or any parent to do, let alone a Christian parent. So, anyway, so before the flood, people judged. They did the same thing to Noah. So he's equating himself to Noah. He's equated himself to Paul. He's equated himself to Nebuchadnezzar. Now he's equating himself to Noah, whining that people judge him. But now he's comparing himself to Jesus Christ. Everybody wanted Yondy. Then Jesus did the laundry. Somehow I don't picture my Savior doing the laundry. That's a bit of an insult to me. But anyway, I'll let you be the judge. We, the descendants of Abraham. He's an African American, so I'm not quite sure how he gets that he's a descendant of Abraham, but that's besides the point. Ye, another one of Kanye's names for himself, ye should be made free. He's demanding that he should be made free. He's telling God that he should set him free instead of having to jump through God's hoops. Then we got lyrics down here, which really send chills up and down my spine a dozen times over. We got the product, we got the tools, we got the minds, we got the youth. We going wild, we on the loose, people is lying, we are the truth. And yet, so this guy is actually admitting to taking advantage of young minds, that he controls the youth. We all know he uses them for his sex chakra. We going wild, we on the loose. Anybody talking about him is lying, but he's got the truth. He is the truth. Everything old shall now become new. I will mention one other video that he was on, the Beats One album. If you go watch that, I'll warn you, it's hard to get through 48 minutes. But there's a lot of revealing stuff about Kanye and Kanye's mind, Kanye's spirit. He talks about killing the bride of Christ. You know, if you're a Christian, you should know that we are the bride of Christ. And he's talking on this song about everything old shall become new. They're talking about getting rid of Christians and becoming a new Christianity, the army of God, and we are the truth. He's talking about mowing us down, barreling us over, getting rid of us, and starting a new Christianity. Are you really sure that you want your child going to the Strength to Stand concert in 2000, folks? Well, you've given us an hour and 18 minutes of your time, so thank you for that. We sincerely appreciate it. If you have any further questions, you can contact us at contact-us at One Stone Ministries. Feel free to visit our website, https://www.onestoneministries.com. And then if you'd like to subscribe to our YouTube channel for future videos, we've gotten a shortened YouTube URL, bit.ly/u-tube-1sm. Thank you very much and have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.